Hey, hello there. Welcome to episode 8 of the Truth Files. I am in the jungle. So I'm in my final day at Casa Mariposa here. And so I wanted to make sure that I recorded this here before I headed out. I'm actually flying out tomorrow as I'm recording this. Today is Thursday, September 11th. And I am heading out to pick up my rental vehicle in a couple of hours and yeah, a couple of hours so that I can drive myself back to Liberia Airport. And then I fly out early tomorrow morning. And so there's been a lot brewing over the last few weeks. I didn't check back, but I think the last video I published was probably 3 weeks ago, at least. Probably about 3 weeks ago. And I think I keep saying this every video, but the biggest shifts and transformations have happened in this last little while, and it feels like there's been kind of longer and longer in between each video and each transmission because the shifts are getting bigger and bigger as I go along. So that's part of the reason. So this has definitely felt like the biggest one yet. So I've got a lot to share with you, starting with I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the last transmission in this series. So kind of there might be another version of the Truth Files in the future, but for right now, it feels like this season is complete. So it might also be the completion of the entire series and the entire concept. I'm not entirely sure. And that is part of how I live, is that, that's the intuition that I received, but I don't know what the grand plan is. So I know what the plan is, or I know what I'm receiving right now. And it did drop in that this is the last video in this series, at least. And so there's also been a little bit of not hesitation, but preparation for me, because this feeling of, well, if this is the last one, what do I want to say? And then it just starts, I've got pages and pages of notes here of things that I wanted to talk about because I also really want this to be of value. I mean, I know that they're just sharing story can be of value, but I always really do want to connect this back to the principles that I'm living by, and the level of good and positivity that I want anything that I put out into the world to create as well. So I mean, I'm mindful, I'm conscious of what I'm sharing. So there's that. And then I thought, well, this is going to have to be two episodes and you know, a 2 hour season finale kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm gonna get started with this because also yesterday, as I was jotting out a lot of these notes, I woke up this morning and I'm like, do I even need to say any of that? So I really want to be in the spirit of this whole series and truth and transmission, and to trust in the moment of what is coming through and what wants to come through. Part of that is my design, is that as a manifesting generator, and I have a sacral motor to the throat. Also, I am heavily defined in the spleen, heavily. Some, like the vast majority of my spleen is defined. So speaking what is alive in the moment is the best part of my design. So I can make all of the plans in the world and I get into the moment and I might toss all of those plans because I'm responding to the energy that is alive in the moment. So I'm going to trust that that is what is happening here. And I love, see, it's sunrise. So it's just after 7 o'clock here. And so the sun rises just before 6. And so we're getting sunrise light along with this, which I think is really beautiful. So right behind me here, this is a little creek. So I can hear water trickling. The way I'm recording this through Zoom, and Zoom blocks out a lot of, like, does a really good job of blocking out ambient noise, but it also means you don't hear the water trickling by. It means you don't hear the birds chirping and the insects uh chattering and the occasional howler monkey calling in the distance. So we'll have to settle for the visual the visual expression for now. And if you're listening, like some people tell me they listen to this as they're driving or going on about their business, then just trust that you're being enveloped by really beautiful jungle energy and jungle frequencies. So, anyways, all right. So back to the season finale. So, at the last video, I mentioned that there had been a big shift, and that is true, and that I am flying out tomorrow, the September 12th, and that is true. So, what I want to catch you up on is how that all came about, where I'm going, all of that kind of thing. And also, the other thing that Zoom blocks out is road noise. So, the main road isn't that far from here, and lots of loud vehicles. But anyways, so what's come about, and I am really very excited about this, is first of all, well, I'll say the easy thing to explain is tomorrow I am flying out, flying back home to Vancouver Island. So I am very, very excited for that. So on the day that I fly out tomorrow, it will be exactly 60 days since I left, or however you want to look at it, 2 months. I left on July 12th, and tomorrow is September 12th. So exactly 2 months to the day that from when I left to when I will be returning. It's beautiful. There we go. Now I've got a halo. There's my crown chakra. How's that for you? Oh, and apparently I learned yesterday the proper pronunciation is chakra, and that actually matters to what you're actually invoking. So let's say this is my crown chakra that is being activated through this, but it's also difficult to watch. So I'll mute that a little bit. So, anyways, I am flying back home, and I'm very excited about this. So I also want to be careful about how I'm saying that because this land has been absolutely incredible and transformative and amazing in so many ways. Mosquito, goodbye. Um, and I am so excited to be back in my home frequency. The the awareness that extended travel has given me about frequency that uh comes from land, the land itself, the animals that inhabit the land, the essentially the music of the land, like all of the birds, the sounds, everything. There's a sound, there's a frequency emanating from the land, the plants and vegetation that's here, the bugs, animals, insects. So this mosquito wants to share a message today, apparently, that are here. The people, the culture. There's a frequency it's not just same, right? It's not just same thing, different spot on the globe. It's a totally different frequency. And how things operate, the infrastructure of things, how essential like social contracts that you assume or take for granted about how things work and how people interact and what you can expect or not expect. Maybe if I shift that a little bit while the sun is right there. Like it's all different. So the language, the frequency, the harmony of the language, how things are communicated, everything is completely different in different parts of the globe. Spoiler alert. So there is definitely like a missing of home frequency and all of the things that make my system just go like not have to consciously scan for all of these things. Like an exaggerated form of this would be speaking in a second language, right? Because you have to sort of do a translation. You have to put in more conscious effort and awareness to translate your thoughts, kind of your natural state. And that's what it's like being in a different place. There's like a constant translation of all of the things your nervous system has learned to sort of go, okay, we don't need to pay attention to that. We've assessed that it's safe and everything is fine. So pay attention to these novel things, right? So when you're in a new place, like everything is novel. And so it takes a lot of bandwidth. And so I am really excited to be back on the island because it really has become home for me, this feeling of home, even though I've only lived there for 3 years. Um, so I'm excited for that. And a lot of the things like just being able to understand conversations when I'm in the grocery store, you know, um, sidewalks. I am so excited for sidewalks, I gotta tell you. And being able to flush toilet paper again. Uh, not sweating. 24 hours a day, not being sticky constantly. So like things like that, right? So I'm excited for that. And the other part of this is a big part of the reason that I am going home. Let me also say that I have really had an awareness of the level of how rich an immersive travel experience really is. So if you're just hopping around place to place to place to place, and it's just sort of a tourism kind of thing, and you're just like, oh, I was here, I saw this picture, and you're just bipping around, that's one level of travel and navigation. But if you really want to experience other places on the globe, my awareness at this point is that it it takes a lot of bandwidth. It's a far deeper experience than I ever really understood. So it deserves a lot of respect and reverence and space. And so that was one of the things that I realized is that I just couldn't I didn't have the bandwidth to be moving around a bunch of times. And because also, like I'm still working. I'm still I'm not yet independently wealthy. So I'm still working. I'm still, living my dharma and generating my purpose. And the goal and the dream is to be able to work from anywhere on the planet, to have location freedom. And so I've got that. And it's, there's a lot to figure out when you're moving around to different places and how to make sure that you can stay connected and have the bandwidth on all levels to remain connected and to be doing the work that you want to do. So, a level of respect for the process and the awareness that if I was just jumping place to place to place to place, it would have been just too much. Like, I think we have to understand and be aware of our own capacities as well. And I just don't think that I could have done justice, really served each place that I was visiting if I was trying to pack in a whole bunch. And so the awareness that I have right now is that I really do crave a home base, like a place to, like a charger station, right? To go back in, to charge, to know that this is home base, and then be able to go out for maybe 3 or 4 months out of the year in one place or a region, not necessarily just one spot, but a region where there can be plenty of planning and research, because that's been another awareness of like now I know what needs to be planned and researched at a greater depth than I did ahead of this. Excuse me. And then also the integration afterwards, because I know it's going to take me a few months probably to really integrate all of the shifts that I've gone through with this, because that's the other thing too. When something is entirely novel, you're taking in new data, and that's where you have the opportunity to really shift and change and look at what is on autopilot in you and in your life, and very intentionally choose your entire operating system, really. And so, I mean, that's like foundational level restructuring that's going on, and to really give it a lot of respect and a lot of time to integrate, because this is something that a lot of people do is just jump and jump and jump, experience, experience, experience. And even I had this conversation with a client yesterday, actually, basically spiritual tourists, people who are just because we were talking about plant medicine. And so there is absolutely the thing where you just have the experience, you have the high, and then you just keep chasing the high, right? Without actually using the high as a reference point. and then pulling that into your daily life to live it, to integrate it, to make use of these insights that you are receiving. And so I think the biggest thing is for me has been the reverence for what this process actually is. And the thought or the idea of taking a year in several different places, uh, it just felt like too much. So that's been that awareness. And then probably the biggest, the most foundational shift that's happened in this process is that, so m many of you know or are aware that, like I'm here on my own. So my husband and I took intentional time apart, uh, in over this period of time. And it was really, it was, a very definite separation where we did not think, or I did not think, that there was anything beyond that. Because anyone who knows, and I'll speak, from the feminine experience, any female who has, gotten to the point or taken the step of separation, it's pretty much the hardest decision, you'll ever make in your life. It's not it's not a light decision, and it's not a decision that anybody would look forward to. And so to know that that's the path forward, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of detachment of outcome. And this is a principle that I actually want to talk about. Like, this is a spiritual principle, it's a spiritual technology of going all in. If you're ever unsure of anything, like, go all in on it, like go all in or go all out, right? And so half-heartedness or half committal is the death of everything. And this is actually one of the shadows in the gene keys is half-heartedness. And so where people are hedging their bets or, sticking around, but they're not fully in it, or, whether it's business or relationships or anything like that. So half-heartedness will kill everything in the end. It's a shadow state. And so if you're not sure about anything, a job, a relationship, a situation, a living arrangement, whatever it is, go all in on it. Like, put your full energy, attention, love, effort into it and see what happens as a result of that. And so you'll get answers. And so for me, I reached a point at which the answer was to separate and have no attachment for what the outcome of that is going to be. And it also takes a lot of courage, because there are other people who are connected to the relationship, who have an investment in the relationship. And even though it's not their relationship, it matters to them, and they're affected by it. And so, whether you're making a change for yourself in relationship or career or anything like that, uh, there can be a lot of noise or fear or hesitation around, yeah, but what is this person going to say? And how is it going to affect that person? And, so on and so forth. And this is why a lot of people don't make any changes, no matter how positive or affirming it is for them, is because they're trying to manage everybody else's feelings and expectations and perspectives and stability. Sorry, I keep looking over because there's some kind of noise and activity not far from me. But really attempting to manage other people's experience of life and of them too, perception of reputational damage control and that kind of thing as well. Uh, so it's not an easy choice and decision to make. And so that was the place that I was in when I left. And it wasn't acrimonious. It was what would the best way to say it? I would say sad, that like wish that wasn't the that wasn't the state of things, the state of the union. I'm just gonna pause for a sec. Okay, I was able to collect myself a little bit there because I don't want this to be a big emotional thing. I really do want to convey as much as I can without sobbing all the way through. Um, so yeah, so it there was definitely a lot of sadness. I mean, it was the last thing that I wanted to do, and it was also the only thing left. So when you are committed to a path of growth and evolution, you get presented with these portals of discomfort. So any of us, all of us are presented with these things. Something happens, there's this discomfort. And the only time, and this is a Kabbalistic principle, the only time we have access to free will is in times of discomfort. And so the Kabbalists look at uh, time or our lives almost like a movie or a destiny. So on this destiny, it's predetermined. It's like a movie, right? That when you go into the theater, this is the movie that you're going to be watching, and no matter how many times you shout at the screen, it's not going to change. The only way to access a different movie is to go into a different theater. And so that's what these portals of discomfort are, is literally the only time when we have an opportunity to go into a different theater and access different timelines, different destinies, different realities. And how we recognize those portals is they fucking hurt. Like they're not comfortable. And you don't have to wonder if you're being presented with the portal. Like, it's usually, we don't want this to be happening. Why is this happening? I'm so annoyed, frustrated, furious, like whatever it might be. Those are the times that we have the opportunity to make a different choice. And here's the thing is that accessing a higher destiny goes through a portal, and so is accessing a lower destiny. So accessing a higher destiny is, the Kabbalists would say, acting like the creator. And so whenever you respond from a higher perspective, whenever you have more certainty, whenever you bring more unity into into a decision, and I'm very froggy in my throat because this is I'm putting a lot of truth through my throat chakra. um so oof, just 1 minute. You probably couldn't hear that, but I would have had to shout to hear myself over that. Road noise beside engine retarder brakes, very, very loud. Anyways, throat chakra. I need to collect myself because now I've lost my train of thought. 1 second. Accessing destinies. So, in these moments of discomfort, the more we act like the creator, access higher states, and how we respond and how we choose to respond, that's how we access and elevate higher destinies. We access lower destinies, our lives get worse when we descend and devolve into fear, guilt, shame, anger, all of those kinds of things. So when we get caught in those loops, it's a big game of snakes and ladders. We can absolutely descend into a lower destiny, and we can choose to ascend into higher destinies as well. And so the key component of both of those things, pardon my sniffles, is the willingness to face discomfort, or in accessing the higher destiny, it's a willingness to face the discomfort and going into it. When you access lower destinies, you just get lost in the discomfort and you believe you're the victim to whatever it is. So when you're willing to face the discomfort and go in and do the hard things, that's when you access. When you're willing to face your negativity, your Kabbalists would call it your tikkun, the corrections that you're here to shift and transform. That's when you access higher destinies. And so part of that is going all in, going all in one direction, and that will speed up the revelation, the clarity, and the transformation. And so, excuse me, sniffles. Um, so that, I mean, that was part of what I did, is I went all in on this path, and just really knowing that this was going to reveal everything that it needed to reveal, and it did. And as truthful as I've been in this series, there's still lots more that just remains deeply personal, and part of my own really deep internal processes that I mean, maybe, sometimes I share with clients and with people who are close to me, but ultimately, like our processes are our processes, and what we need to go through is just that. So this has been an incredibly deep and transformative process. And what I want to speak to with that is that the level of transformation has nothing to do with time. Nothing at all to do with time. It has to do, I would say, primarily with depth and with decision. And so the degree to which we are willing to go deeply into the shadow or into the darkness or to face ourselves, to face our cocoon, our correction, is the degree to which we can access higher, higher dimensions, higher destinies, higher capacities on the other side of it. And so it's if you looked at it a spectrum as a spectrum where you've got the highest of experiences here and the lowest of experiences here, the only way you can access this is if you also have access to this. And so if we're in a narrow band of capacity where we're willing to experience little bits of negative emotion or discomfort, then we only have access to this amount of joy or positive experience in our lives. So if we want this, if we want more positive experiences, we have to be willing to experience the depths of negative experiences. And the key part of this is typically grief. Grief is what accesses this. So this is why a lot of people have huge awakenings after loss. And whatever loss is defined for you, loss of relationship, loss of job, career, loss of purpose, loss of meaning, loss of money, whatever loss connects you to grief is typically one of these big portals. And so I want to come back to this concept that time means nothing. So I want you to think of it this way, is that, you've probably known people who have been in therapy for decades and they seem to be doing the same thing. Nothing's really solved. Or people who have done hundreds of plant medicine ceremonies and they're still, you know, cycling through the same stuff. Excuse me. Um, and then you've probably known people too who uh overnight made a decision and completely changed their lives. Like suddenly, they lose they're on a path and they lose 100 pounds. Or they decide to like quit smoking cold turkey or whatever it is. Like change, like going from one version of yourself to another does not have to take a long period of time. Fundamentally, at the heart of it, it's a decision, a change in perception and perspective of who you are and how you want to move through the world. And so, however long it takes you to get to that point is the time it takes to change, to change anything. So, this idea that change takes a long time, and I'm going to get a little heated about this because this is some stuff, some flack that I've kind of taken through this. The idea that change takes a long time is bullshit. And so, part of what I am here to do and what I am here to represent as my fundamental design, and I'll speak to this a little bit, is that as a manifesting generator, I move really fucking fast. I like I and also a very heavily splenic defined. Like I understand, like my knowing is instantaneous in the moment and I can make decisions really fast. Part of the fundamental part of my design is being here to demonstrate and display how easy it is to make huge changes on the earth plane in very short amounts of time. Like to essentially leapfrog, call it quantum leap, whatever it is, leapfrog in any area, in identity, in interest, in like in manifestation, whatever it might be, is that bringing things into form on the earth plane does not have to take a very long period of time. And so not only as a manifesting generator is that part of who I am, my key, my main key, my life's work, my conscious sun, whatever system you're working on, is 51. So in human design, it's called the gate of shock. In the gene keys, it's the key of awakening, but it's through the pathway of initiative. And so there's no path ahead of me. I'm here to create entirely unique paths. I'm here to operate in unique ways. And doing things that are unique and unconventional, non-linear, really rattles the fucking boat sometimes. It rattles people's cages who don't understand that and can't and don't appreciate it. It makes them feel less secure in the world. If somebody can up and change this quickly, then what does that mean? It makes them feel insecure. It's a shock, which is the human design version of that gate. It's shocking. And so shocks are these portals, these wormholes to expansion. So either you use the shock and you move through it and as your greatest expansion, or you become collapsed by the shock. And that's, that does happen to people as well. So the other part of this design wise too is I'm a three line, I'm a 3-5. And so my purpose and role on the planet is to learn through trial and error, to live it, to experience it, to understand what steps can be skipped, what is absolutely critical, and then to report back. Then that's the fifth line, to then report back and to teach this. And so there is nothing about my path that is going to look linear, thoughtful, well structured. Um, all of those kinds of things. So anybody who needs that to feel safe and secure on the planet is going to feel really disrupted by me. And also because the third line, like basically the motto is to fail forward, right? The faster we can iterate and the faster we can find what works and what doesn't work so that we can report back, the more we are living in our design. So it's messy. Y'all, it is a messy way to live. Like I kind of call myself a big toddler, and toddlers have the most joy for life, want to do everything, dive into everything. And but they also fall on their ass 1,000 times a day and bang their heads off at things and howl and cry. And then they get up the next day wanting to do it all over again. And that is honestly what I would kind of call a third line. And then the six lines are the people who are dominant six, like conscious six. That's a double three. And you operate like that for the majority of your life. So I'm a three line and my husband is a six line. And we're both Manny Gens. And between the two of us, our chart is like 95% defined. And so there is a great deal of synchronicity between the two of us. And we're both team variable. So when we are aligned, like the speed at which the two of us move and can and generate things and bring things into creation is instantaneous. It's lightning. And when we're not aligned, it's messy. It's very messy. And so this is, some of this is witnessing what it looks like for two Manny Gens, fumbling through the world and figuring things out. And we met when I was 19, he was 21. And so I want to put some context to this is that um, we met when the internet was barely a thing, like barely a thing. And so not only, just to be with somebody for 30 years when you've met them when you're 19 years old as a baby, you know, and then all of the changes that have happened in the world and the major life shifts that we have gone through, like early unplanned pregnancy and having to finish post-secondary as a young family and moving cities multiple times and changing careers multiple times and the early death of a parent of my mom when we were still quite newly married and um, growing a family, having two busy active kids and long-term terminal illness of another parent where you're the executrix in my case of an estate and entrepreneurship. So also hats off to anybody who is married to an entrepreneur because it's a life of chosen instability and uncertainty. And so entrepreneurship, opening a business, closing a business, the experience of business debt, shit, COVID. Like we've come through so much, and we have had over nearly 30 years. This will be the fourth period of separation that we have had. And, there could be the opportunity to judge that as, messy and flaky and not having your shit together and stuff like that. Or it could be, a real deep devotional commitment to the path of growth and doing the hard things, like really being willing to choose truth and growth and sovereignty over comfort, over expectations, over uh just doing, falling in line with other people's discomfort. Um, so the narrative of your life and the meaning that you make of it is also what determines the quality of it, and who has control over the narrative of your life is only you. So if you choose the narrative of, and this is such a third line life lesson because we make so many fucking mistakes, is that, oh, look at all of the mistakes that I've made, right? And oh, what a failure I am. And therefore, now I'm too scared to try anything new because of this pile of mistakes that I have in my past. So instead of wallowing that and dropping into that, the narrative that we give all of these things is so important. And so to have the narrative of the strength and the commitment and the deep thread of love and devotion that has woven two paths together for almost 30 years is the narrative that I am choosing. And there was so it feels important to tell this story, so I'm going to tell it. So because of my design, just following the intuition, acting in the moment, allowing life to unfold, being a three line, questioning everything for a long time in my marriage and in my relationship, there was a lot of questioning. Is this the right thing? Should I be doing, like a lot of that. And several years ago when I had my first when I had plant medicine ceremony, I was at a retreat for a week. This is the retreat that I've referenced a lot that has changed my life completely. It's like pull back the veil on everything and you understand exactly, or I understood exactly how I had created every single outcome in my entire life. And you get shown behind the curtain like Wizard of Oz style and you go, "Oh, that's why everything is the way it is." And it's like getting the cheat codes, like getting the source code. If your brain and your consciousness is ready to see that, not everybody sees that. Anyways, one of the messages that I was given, or the revelations that I had at that time, is that my relationship with my husband is one of, if not the primary reason for this incarnation. So, and I've had this confirmed with other people over many years, and this is not a romantic version of this phrase, but the concept of a twin flame. So when you have this kind of a contract with somebody, the twin flame is like a mirror. And so it is, it gets romanticized, but it's not particularly romantic because there's a deep connection. There's a deep connection and soul contract to be each other's mirrors, and that can be incredibly confronting and painful. And so it's borne out over 30 years, the level of work that we have done together in transforming. I mean, we can always only speak to what's within us, the things that we came into the relationship with, and recognizing that those things that we all come into this incarnation with as individuals has come through a lineage, has like, but not in the sense of they did this to me and nah, 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 nah. It's like a living organism that goes back generations and centuries and timelines, that has a particular genetic expression the codes that hold all of these frequencies, that hold the shadow, the gift, and the city of all of these different things that get activated in these individuals. So I also want to disabuse people of the idea that we came in as these perfect, pristine children and our parents damaged us. That is not what happened. This organism, this being incarnates through generations. So if you think of it as a whole being that has different characteristics, each sort of set, if you want to look at it as family patterns, has patterns and shadows and lineage things that then get expressed through individuals. And if those individuals are aware and awake, they play the role and they transmute those particular characteristics and things to higher octaves, higher frequencies. So we all come in with stuff from our lineages, and we choose to address this through relationship. And some of us opt in to do some real fucking chewy work in certain lifetimes. And that I think is part of what we have done. So it's been really challenging. There has been a lot of challenges, but at the heart of it is also really deep love and commitment and a willingness to go through these challenges. And so that has been a big part of what our path has been. And from the outside, it can look messy and chaotic and like we don't have our shit together and oh, here we go again. And, all of those kinds of things that I reject that narrative. I simply reject that narrative. And anybody who's watching, if you've ever felt that of somebody else trying to apply a certain narrative to your life, that that you get to reject that too. Only you inside your life understand the full narrative and what the story is that you get to tell of your life and the meaning of it. And so that is potentially a very long way to come about the fact that a major part of this pathway for me and for my husband has been a reconciliation, which I think is beautiful. I think it's amazing. And what I do know also, and this is part of the narrative, is that each time we have come around, like it's a spiral. It's not just like chaotic of, oh, we don't have it together and oh, it's the same argument. It is not the same fucking argument over 30 years. It just isn't. And what it is it's a spiral, different phases of life. And anybody who is over 20 knows this, is that different phases of life calls different things out of us, and different things are required. I mean, if you look at this life as a big video game, every level requires a different skill set and a different level of capacity. And you go through the level and you die 1,000 times, and then you figure the level out, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can't believe I ever found this hard. And then, oh, guess what? There's another level after this. And so uh, I am certainly not somebody who wants to settle in and be like, okay, I got this level figured out and I'm going to sit there. Anybody who is talking about being bored or unappreciated or not having their purpose or any of that, that's somebody who is settled for the level that they're in and they're not willing to challenge the next level. Because when you go to the next level, you become the baby, you become like incompetent all over again at the next level. And most people are so unwilling to do that they'd rather stay at one level and be fucking miserable for the rest of their life and their career and their relationship, or just ho hum or bored or whatever. And I'm getting a little fired up, right? Because this is my life's work, pathway of initiative, and like let's do some things. We're only on earth for a short period of time, so let's not just settle in and get bored and miserable. Like let's move. But the moving means you get humbled over and over and over again. And so our relationships are our greatest teachers. So in the gene keys, that's the bottom sphere. This is the sphere of purpose. That's where all relationships enter our karmic field, right? And so the sphere of purpose has twofold purposes. Is one is the purpose of all of our relationships is trying to show us this frequency. And then for entrepreneurs, the flip side of that is that's the secret sauce, the reason under the reason why people are coming to see you. is that particular frequency. And then you move up a level into like, so that's everybody coming to you is showing you this frequency. And then the ones that are called to go deeper into your life and closer to your field, that's the sphere of attraction in the gene keys and the Venus sequence. And that's where you start to get into dharmic or karmic relationships, why people are drawn in. And then the closest relationships, so your love relationships, that's when you start accessing the rest of the Venus sequence. So your sphere of IQ, EQ, and SQ. So that's essentially the pathway to trigger your core wounds. And when you understand this, you can utilize your relationships as a pathway to transmute and transform them. When you don't understand them, this is what creates karma. So this is the pathway of either creating dharma, dharmic conclusions, or karmic conclusions. So you either ascend or descend based on how you're responding to these things. And what relationships do is when you're first initiated into them, you are given the taste of the highest frequency of that relationship. You're given a taste, a reference point, and then it triggers all of the shadows underneath that are yours, that have come through your lineage, but you chose to work on in this lifetime. And how you respond to the triggering of those shadows determines the level that that relationship can ascend to. And so sometimes relationships fully have to separate and people go on and they have different partners, right? Sometimes too, the relationship itself ascends and ascends and ascends and ascends as each partner develops the capacities, requirements, understandings for each next level of life phase. That can happen. And then also the Kabbalists talk about the concept that a new soul can come into the body of like if you're talking about calling in your soul mate, so it can be the same person ascended, and then it can also essentially be a new soul that comes in because the transformation that you take on the inside is what brings you up a level in your destiny, right? So at this new destiny, if you're envisioning a particular type of relationship, the only way you can get to that relationship is if you transform, if you go through that portal of discomfort, is what gives you access to that. Now, the form that that takes is none of your business. Like that's none of your beeswax. So if you're like, oh, well, this is going to be somebody who is 6'3" and in finance and has dark hair and, so none of that. You don't have control over the form of that. It's the frequency of that, the experience of relationship that you want to have, business, like whatever it is. I'm talking about my relationship. So that's why I'm saying relationship. But the form that that takes is none of your business. So it might be the form of a new person. It might be the form of your beloved making changes. And it might be essentially like your beloved becomes an entirely different person, where when you've done the work that you need to do, which by the way, isn't just kumbaya on the mountaintop and meditating your way into it. A lot of times it's taking the really uncomfortable action that you don't want to take because you're afraid of XYZ repercussion or whatever. That's the portal that you need to walk through, the hard conversation you need to have, the fear of disappointing people, your people pleasing tendencies, like all of those kinds of things. Like then there's an action that you need to take in the third dimensional world that indicates that you are willing to make the shift and not just meditating and being like, okay, God, universe, like transform things around me. Like the internal decision has to change. Like you have to understand the destiny that you're moving towards and be so clear that you deserve it and that you are going to move towards it, that you make the step and the decision to do that. And then you let the people who support that rise to it. Right? So sometimes the players that are in your particular destiny will come up and along with you. Sometimes they will. Sometimes it's just like, oh, wow, that's cool. We still get to play together. Sometimes that really clear decision on your part will exit people out of your experience. They will be so disturbed by your new clarity and your actions that they will opt out in one form or another. Or it'll become so clear to you that you cannot continue on with that frequency, because when you're at an elevated destiny and elevated frequency, the old frequency just can't come along. And this isn't good, bad. This person is good, bad. It's all just an illusion anyways. So who you believe you're interacting with is not actually there. But the experience that you have of these individuals will elevate and change, or it'll exit out. And so during that transition phase, you have to stay really firm and clear in your own self so that you can hold that frequency and welcome in that new destiny. So it's totally true in terms of the law of attraction. It's not what you desire, it's who you are. So you have to be internally and externally the person who's a match to what you're envisioning. And so if you're internally a match to somebody who has whatever it is, but your external behavior is you're accepting certain types of interaction or behavior or whatever it is, your external is not matching your internal reality. So you can't access that. So it all has to line up. It all has to line up. And so that's really what has happened, has been a deep commitment to a path of sovereignty, to a deep inner knowing, a decision about what the next phase of my life gets to look like, and to act in full alignment with that, and then to be in detachment for the form that that takes. So there's often surprise and delight around the new characters that come in or the old characters that elevate to this new destiny. And so that's essentially what I've experienced, is a complete elevation of my relationship into this new octave that I was envisioning. And so that's maybe I'll speak to that a little bit here as a concept, is because that is actually the role of the feminine. Is so here's something interesting, is the feminine principle, and I'm not going to get into all the gender stuff. So like just take this as broad strokes. The feminine principle, and I am speaking biologically feminine in this concept as well, but it is the feminine that essentially determines the evolution of the species, because the feminine decides what male characteristics gets reproduced ideally, right? Um, and so it's the feminine that is selecting for the masculine traits that get to be generated, that gets to have progeny. And so it's feminine desire that determines what masculine energy gets brought forward. And so that feminine desire, so the feminine leads, it's a feminine desire, vision, and the masculine's greatest pleasure is to grant the feminine desire, right? And that becomes yin and yang. And the masculine's role there is to say, I hear your desire, and here's my vision for how that can be executed and how I'll hold this and help create that. And so that's an extreme simplification, but that's basically how those two energies work together. And when they work together in harmony, like creation happens, right? That's how babies get made. Um, and so continuing this pattern and this pathway, the feminine also has to have the courage to hold those desires and to know that they're possible and to honor themselves enough to hold true to that vision and to do whatever is needed to honor that first, and then see what masculine form rises to that. And that is right, divine order. It's not women running around begging and pleading to be chosen. So in this way, the feminine, and this is Gene Key 27, or is it 37? This is the city of tenderness. This is actually Christ consciousness. So Christ the Lamb. So tenderness is the highest principle. And weakness is the subversion of the feminine to the masculine. So weakness is actually force, is like strength, dominance, that kind of thing. That's weakness. And so when the feminine principle leads and the masculine supports, so leads in the sense of desire, tenderness, that kind of thing, and the masculine supports, that is the right order of the universe. And that's when creation works most harmoniously. And so today, what we're seeing is kind of an inversion of all of this, where, and we've all got masculine and feminine within us. So let's not totally, turn this into something weird that it doesn't need to be. Um, but this is also where a lot of masculine, like women have had to and have opted into overdeveloped masculine tendencies. And men are being encouraged to develop their more feminine, but there's been a little bit of a polarity flip there where women are too far in their masculine. And a woman who is too far in her masculine is also like chasing a man around too. And so that's an inversion in and of itself in that very small way, wanting to be chosen. Like that's not queen energy. Like the queen energy is sovereign, is certain in who she is, understands um, that access is rare. And then what happens is the masculine, and this is born out in the sperm and the egg, the masculine, there's offers, offers from the masculine, and the feminine selects what she lets in. Like this is at the heart of creation. So I'm not making this up. So when women are acting from that place of sovereignty and have their own level of personal development, then there are suitors and she chooses who gets let in and what energy gets amplified and and bred essentially, right? And then when you're past your physical reproductive years, then it becomes then that polarity continues to expand in the way then because the feminine serves the family, pours out and serves the family through these reproductive years. And then as you emerge into, what starts to become your elder years, your crone years, then it becomes the masculine in full service to the feminine, in not in a reproductive way, but in a spiritual way. And so when things are in right relationship, and of course the feminine is deeply serving the masculine as well. But I'm just talking about this inversion that isn't working very well for a lot of relationships. Um, and so yeah, so I mean that has been a lot of the stuff that I have been working through because this isn't a whole bunch of, oh, I was such an angel and then I had to make this decision and and I just had to elevate my standards, and that's not it at all, because my role in all of this is having gone too far into the masculine because I'm an entrepreneur. I have a lot of masculine in my charts and in my designs as it is, but the over masculine of leading and like over mothering is actually a very masculine trait. So all of these women out here who are over functioning in so many ways in their lives, like that's what I'm speaking to. And so when you over mother somebody, you take away their agency. You don't let them rise. That's enabling. Um, it's so many things. It's not a positive trait or characteristic, ultimately, in the end. And so that's been a lot of what I have been working on within myself is the overfunctioning. And so overfunctioning has roots in fundamental mistrust of the masculine. So you over masculine. You become more masculine because you don't have a fundamental trust in the masculine. And it doesn't just mean your partner. The masculine means God, the universe, right? The trust that you are held and loved and protected and provided for no matter what. That is trust in the masculine. And so when women don't have that, they become very masculine. And so that inverts a lot of these relationships. And a lot of women are acting more like men than men are a lot of the time. So there's a whole bunch of things here. And So that's been a lot of my journey over the last while of as active parenting was coming to a close and the conclusion of essentially that phase of our contract, our meaning myself and my husband, all of that energy has to be reconfigured. So I talked about this before of as you go into perimenopause, like your reproductive energy doesn't disappear, right? It goes somewhere else. Um, it goes up into higher chakras if you do it consciously and correctly. And the same thing with parenting and mothering energy is that if it doesn't get redirected and transmuted, it'll get directed at your partner, which doesn't work very well. And so that's been my role and responsibility in this process and what I have been working very deeply on. So for sure, it takes two to tango, and it was a perfect match between two energies. So there is no level at which I am a victim here in anything, but also the feminine is often the one, like I said, declares a new desire. And so starts moving towards that new desire, typically ahead of the masculine. And if the masculine isn't tuned in and really paying attention to this and having the same concept and desire for growth, then the gap widens too far. And the only choice is to separate and to choose yourself and the vision that you have and see who elevates or who doesn't to that role. But it's never been about how wonderful I am and what a total catch I am. And this silly man needed to just figure things out. It's very, very much a mirror experience, and yeah, that's what has happened. So if I can tie all of this together in a bow, and I have no idea how long I've been talking at this point, if I can tie all of this together in a bow, is that I feel like there's even more I want to say. So let me see if I've got. Okay, so what had to happen is the old contract had to be broken. It was not it could not come along into the new vision of the latter half of my life beyond after active parenting. And so I went all in on that. And we released our apartment. We put everything in storage. Um, I booked flights out. I went all in on my concept of, or my intention of this year-long initiatic path. And it's through that deep commitment, the all-inness that collapses time. So where my human mind thought I needed a full year along this initiatic path, and I would really encourage everybody to look up the definition of that because I get asked about that a lot. So look up the definition of what an initiatic path is. Um, so my brain told me that I needed a year to accomplish these things, like to create the level of alignment and wholeness that I was in search of. And it didn't take a year. It took it took about 6 weeks and then a few weeks of integration after the fact and really anchoring in the new frequencies and new awarenesses. And so think of it this way. If you think, okay, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write my magnum opus, and I'm going to give myself a year to do it. And then you dive in and you go all in on it, and it takes you a month, you're not going to be like, oh, well, I guess maybe I should, revise this 1,000 times and stretch it out and turn it into a year. So this is how you collapse time is by becoming that person now and just going all in now. And allowing the alchemy of that to happen. And so that is essentially what took place is the level of clarity and awareness and shifts within myself. Um, I mean, go back and watch the videos and see how much I was moving through every single day. Um, I feel like like I mentioned, the week-long retreat that changed my life. I mean, this has been a 2-month retreat of initiations that I created for myself. And so the depth of change and transformation that was able to happen through this. And so I'm speaking primarily for myself because I will let my husband speak for himself as well. But I do know that it was the right initiation for him too. It was the right trigger because it was a trigger of loss and grief that that opened up an entire portal for him that he hadn't had access to previously. So there is also a deep level of trust that how do I know the perfect thing happened? Because it happened, right? So you can't look back at your past and call it a mistake because if it's happened, it was predestined to happen for lifetimes. It was always going to happen on this timeline. And so, and everything that happens to us is happening for us and for the good of our highest transformation. And so if it happened because it was meant to happen, it was destined to happen, and it was good. And so that's where I am at with all of the things. And what I know about traveling and going ahead, because it certainly hasn't dampened my desire and my awareness of what I want to do around the globe. And I never talked about that. I never talked about that. So this feels like a good opportunity to say that is that part of I was gifted a vision, or a vision was revealed to me, 6 years ago, of visiting various sacred sites around the globe and and activating them. And so this connected to, and whether it's individual memory or collective memory, but seeing being a being, seeing all of the ley lines, like a planet has energetic grid. It's like a power grid for the planet. These are ley lines. And so millions, billions of years ago, who knows how long, the planet Earth was gridded, like these ley lines were established. And all of these sacred sites are at these vortexes, these sort of intersections of where there's higher levels of power and potency. And being at those locations, there's a frequency and a transformation that uploads into the individual. And then also it's a symbiotic relationship where individuals who travel to that place are downloading data. It's a download and an upload. And so I was shown a vision that I am to visit these sacred sites for the purpose of tuning and activation. And I will, of course, receive tuning and activation as well. And this process has just shown me what's going to be required of me, my capacity to be able to do that, my fitness, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, to be able to to do that in on all levels. That's what this has shown me. And I'm very clear on what I need to do to be prepared to be able to proceed in that way over the next several years. And so I now understand that I needed the vision of this occurring for a year so that I could go all in on my preparation so that there wasn't a safety net, there wasn't a plan B, it was all in. And now I have new clarity on what that mission is actually going to take for this earthbound human to be able to execute on these things. And who knows, maybe my capacity will increase over time and I'll be able to do things faster. But is that necessarily the goal, right? Is speed the goal or is depth, right? So anyways, that's what I know now. That's what this this episode of the Truth Files is. And I'm just kind of flipping through some things. I have no idea if I hit all of the things I wanted to hit. I'm trusting that what came through in the moment, trusting my splenic intuition that I gave you everything that needed to be said at this point. And so I'm going to be leaving in about an hour and a half to go pick up my rental vehicle. So I've been talking for close to an hour, I guess, if not over, right? And then I will be on my way out of the country. So I'll be overnight in a hotel in Liberia tonight, and then I'm flying out. Like I'll be on a plane tomorrow morning within 24 hours. So this is exciting. It's poignant. I mean, I am so excited to be back home, like in home, Canadian soil, Vancouver Island. I'm so excited to be back with my beloved. I truly am. I truly, truly am. I'm excited for the life that we are visioning and moving ahead with. And what that gets to be not only for us, but for those who are in contact with us. And I really am excited for what comes next. And I'm so grateful for this season, for what this season gifted me and granted me. And so I hope that in my sharing and in my journey that there has been resonance with your own life. I hope that there has been value, lessons, and most of all, I hope that there's been permission on a for a lot of things in your life and on a lot of levels. Uh, because truly, in each incarnation, we're only here for a handful of decades, and to not do and experience everything that you possibly can in that period of time feels like a tremendous waste to me. So, yeah. So I think this is feeling complete right now. So I think this is the end of this episode of the Truth Files. I think this is the end of the season. I'm not getting the intuition or the read that I need a part two of this, but who knows? We'll see what comments and responses and whatnot I get. Maybe something will be unclear, maybe whatever. I might need to add an addendum, a bonus episode. But as of right now, it feels complete for this season. And I just really want to thank everybody who came along for this. It's been really enjoyable to do. Sort of surprised me, honestly, how enjoyable this format has been for me. And I have had the most response to almost anything I've put out or created from this series and this episode. Like I get a lot of messages when I talk to people in person, they comment about the videos. So I'm really gratified to know that there's been some value to you as well along this process. And I am just truly wishing you the most magnificent life, the most abundance that you can possibly hold and stuff into your little paws. I wish you courage through all of the difficult things that pop up. And just as a very quick side note, this particular month of Virgo, right before we transition into Libra, September 23rd and 24th, the month ahead, the previous to that, is always the most difficult month spiritually of the entire year because Libra is when we'll draw down the light, all of the light that we are calling in for that year, that astrological year. Uh, so if this month has been really challenging for you, that is why. If you're listening and watching from some other timeline, just know, heads up, Virgo, Virgo month is challenging. But if you can stay with it, if you can see the portals, if you can act like the creator, if you can elevate your frequency, know that everything is happening for the highest good. Be certain that if it's happening, it's because it's good. If it happened, it's because it was good and was always meant to happen. You will ascend to your higher destiny and have greater and greater experiences of the life that you desire to have. So, with that, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining along with me in this particular season of my life. I love you. I wish you all the best, and I will see you at some point in the future.